Hey everyone, what's going on? I'm Jake from JK Media, and today we're talking about the Canon 6D Mark II and the Canon SL2 and why these two cameras are great for YouTube. So the 6D Mark II and the Canon SL2 both came out around the same time back in 2017. The 6D Mark II came out in June and the SL2 came out a month later in July. So at this point that means that these two cameras are at least 4.5 years old. And I'd make the argument that they're still both great options for YouTube. If you were to go out and buy either one of these cameras, the SL2 isn't sold as a new camera anymore. It's been discontinued at this point, so you can only buy it used. So it runs around $400 to $500, and you can find that price on places like eBay, Facebook Marketplace, and even Amazon's used section. Now as for the 6D Mark II, they still sell this camera new, and it costs around $13.99. I'm pretty sure Canon's website still sells it. I'm not entirely sure on that though. If you can't find it on Canon's website, you should be able to find it on Amazon. Also, you should be able to buy this camera used as well, and I've found prices anywhere from $950 up to $1,100. And those prices can be found on eBay, Facebook Marketplace, Amazon's used section, or even KEH.com. Also, if you guys want to check out either one of these cameras, I'll have links down in the description below. Another great thing about these cameras is the resolution. They both offer 1920 by 1080 Full HD, and like I've said in some of my previous videos, I think this is the lowest possible video resolution that you should accept for YouTube. Some people argue that 4K is now the standard, but I disagree with this. For example, we're shooting this video in 1920 by 1080 and it looks perfectly fine. So this video resolution should definitely be enough for most YouTubers out there. Now we also have 5 different frame rates in these two cameras as well. They can shoot at 24, 25, 30, 50, and 60 frames per second. At 24, 30, and 60 frames per second are probably going to be used the most in these two cameras. 24 because it gives that cinematic quality, 30 because it's used for most media that's played on TV, and 60 because you can use it for gaming and slow motion. So in my opinion, you definitely don't need more than 60 frames per second. There are a lot of cameras out there that can do 120, 240, and even higher, but 60 frames per second is definitely enough. Now the ISO range on these two cameras is slightly different. The SL2 can shoot from 100 up to 25,600 and is expandable up to 51,200. And the 6D Mark II can go from 100 up to 40,000 and is expandable up to 102,400. These ISO ranges aren't incredible, but they should just get you by. Another great thing about these cameras is the autofocus. They both have Canon's dual pixel autofocus, which has been said to be the best autofocusing system out there. However, they do have Canon's older dual pixel autofocus system. Their newer cameras like the Canon R5, R6, and R3 do have faster dual pixel autofocus, which includes face tracking and eye tracking. A lot of other cameras have that as well, like the Sony A1. However, that doesn't mean that the autofocus sucks in these cameras. It's just a little outdated. For instance, on this camera, I'm using dual pixel autofocus, and if I go into the camera like this, it should track my face pretty well, and it is. And then if I go back out like this, it should still track my face. And the final great thing about the 6D Mark II and the Canon SL2 for YouTube is the size. The SL2 is one of Canon's smallest DSLRs out there, and it weighs just under a pound. And the 6D Mark II is one of Canon's smaller full-frame cameras. Now don't get me wrong, the 6D Mark II is not a small camera by any means, but as far as full-frame Canon cameras go, this is on the smaller end of the spectrum. So we've talked about the good things about these cameras. Now let's talk about the bad things or not so good things. First of all, there's only one card slot. Both the 6D Mark II and the SL2 only have one card slot. It's not a big deal for YouTube, but if you do plan on using either one of these two cameras for more professional work, you will be wanting that second card slot. However, if you do plan on using them just for YouTube, one card slot is perfectly fine. Secondly, neither one of these two cameras has in-body image stabilization. If you do want some form of image stabilization for these cameras, you're going to have to find it in the lenses that you buy. Just like this lens here, it's the Canon 10 to 18 millimeter, and it does have image stabilization. It says so right there. However, this lens is a Canon EFS lens, so it's not going to fit on the 6D Mark II because this only has an EF mount. So you have to buy EF mount lenses for the 6D Mark II. However, the Canon SL2, it has an EF and an EF-S mount, so you can buy APS-C or EF-S lenses for the SL2, and you can also buy full frame Canon lenses or EF lenses for the SL2. I know that probably just got really confusing, so let's just recap real quick. The 6D Mark II has an EF lens mount, so it can only accept EF lenses. It can accept EF-S lenses. However, the SL2 has an EF-S mount, meaning that it can accept EF-S lenses and EF lenses. Hope that cleared it up. Another thing that's not amazing about the SL2 is the battery size. If you take the SL2's battery and compare it to the 6D Mark II's, you can definitely tell that the SL2 is much smaller than the 6D Mark II on the right. Now, I'm not saying the battery life of the SL2 is horrible, it's just not as good as the 6D Mark II. However, you're still going to want like 3 or 4 batteries for each camera. The SL2 also doesn't have weather sealing, so if you do want to use your camera out in harsh weather conditions, you might want to get the 6D Mark II instead. However, I have used the SL2 out in the rain, and as long as you take good care of your camera and make sure it's cleaned after each use out in those harsh weather conditions, make sure it's dry and everything like that, I think you should be fine. But if you're really worried about it, again, I suggest getting the 6D Mark II over the SL2. Alright, that's it for this video. If you guys enjoyed watching, make sure you hit that like button. Also, if you want to see more videos just like this one, subscribe by clicking right here. Thanks for watching, and always remember to capture great moments. Peace.